This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
Recording has begun. So I want to welcome you to another episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. As always, this podcast was created to bring you the best and brightest in the marketing space. Our guest today is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Launch. He teaches people how to launch online courses, products, services, and brands online. He started his first online business in 1996, and he pioneered the very idea of the online launch. His product launch formula transformed the online marketing world from the day it was released in 2005, and since then he hasn't slowed down. Now, all these years later, the product launch formula brand is the gold standard in the online entrepreneurial training market. His students and clients have done over $1 billion in launches in hundreds of niches and markets in dozens of countries around the world. He lives in Durango, Colorado, because he can live anywhere he wants, and he loves to get outside for all kinds of adventure. He's been married to his wife, Mary, for decades. He's no longer quite as fast as his kids on skis or mountain bikes, but they still let him come along for the ride. Join me in welcoming a legend in the marketing space, Jeff Walker. Jeff, thanks for joining us on the Marketing Umbrella.
Kevin, thanks for having me.
So that is quite a bio. I'm sure there are things that are just like that happened last month that we didn't touch on. So is there anything like very recent that is not included in that bio that you would want to add?
I think it's pretty up to date. You know, the thing is I have now been teaching online marketing, teaching people how to grow their businesses and start their businesses for a long time. Product Launch Formula first came out in 2005. I was coaching people 2001, 2002, 2003. So it's been a long time, and there's been a lot of changes. The bio is pretty up to date, but it's been just one change after another. Yeah, it has been. It's been a crazy ride. It was interesting. I was just putting together some copy because we've got a workshop coming up that we're pretty excited about, and so I just working on some copy. And one of the things that my team and I were talking about is like you open up your phone these days, and I'm sure your feed for whatever social feed you've got is the same as mine. And there's like what I call a pop-up guru every day. There's like someone,
Absolutely.
And it seems like the minimum, and some of them I'm sure are wonderful, amazing humans and great teachers and coaches, I'm sure. But it seems that sometimes like the minimum viable product or the positioning is that they can rent a really fancy car or rent a real nice Airbnb to shoot a video in front of and to talk about how much money you could make. So we're like, well, how can we combat this? And we're like thinking about like the different proof points. And Kevin, I'm sorry if I'm getting off on a weird tangent, but so like, okay, there's the book. Okay, #1 New York Times bestseller. You can't fake that. It's like here's my plaque, New York Times.
Happens or it doesn't. That's right.
Yeah, you can't fake that one. And then I'm like, okay, you can't fake that one. And then like my primary website is productlaunchformula.com. And domain registrations are a matter of public record.
Yep.
And you can go back and look and see that I registered that domain in 2005. And so it's like you can't fake that. I mean, conceivably, I've been publishing to that domain for whatever, coming up on 20 years now, just because it's a fun hobby. But that is a proof point. And then I'm like, okay, Product Launch Formula, that name was trademarked by the US government. I can't remember the year, 2009 or something like that. And then my name, Jeff Walker, is actually registered for training and marketing and business for over a decade. So I'm like, okay. And then my PLF live event, I do a live event each year, and we've been doing that since 2010. And that one's probably tougher to track the like the verifiable record of that, but it's a fact that thousands of people have attended that since 2010. So I don't know. It was sort of funny going through this. I don't think we're actually going to do anything with it, but going through all the different like points where you could actually say, yeah, no, I've been doing this for a while.
It is absolutely ironic that you mentioned that, because I literally was about to ask you after you talked about going through the feed. I was going to ask you, everybody's seen the 21-year-old life coach. It's like, I'm sorry, you actually need to live life before you can coach on on that space.
Right.
The fact that you have had such a consistent longevity, in a space and still remain relevant. I mean, how many courses out there, kind of fizzled out like a Roman candle, and then, they were the hottest thing for 6 months, and then
Right.
they didn't iterate, they didn't keep up, they didn't change with the times, whatever. So what's actually been your secret to being current, so long?
Right. Well, I think to be a little flippant for initially, I think one of my skills is that I like am able to not get bored with something because I think a lot of like even when I was starting,
that may just be accuracy.
right, it's true. But so I think that like when I first came out with Product Launch Formula back then, there were a lot of people teaching online marketing. There's a lot of marketing gurus, and many of them were good friends of mine and are still good friends of mine to this day. Amazing marketers, amazing entrepreneurs. But back in those days, the business model for an online marketing guru was you came out with a course and you sold that. And then you immediately started thinking about what the next course would be.
Yeah.
And then you developed that and you sold that. And then you thought of the next one. And there's nothing wrong with that, and they were a lot of great courses, great trainings. Like I said, these are amazing people that I've been friends of mine now for decades, and or at least in their second decade of friendship, and that was sort of the model. And then I don't know why, but I came out with Product Launch Formula, and to me it was so obvious that it wasn't a one-shot wonder. And that because it was uses timeless principles of human psychology and business and marketing. And yeah, the tools would change, but the formula would remain. And I got so addicted to the success that my students were getting that I just started to, my marketing became just showing the success stories of my students. And then that created this feedback loop where my students saw me celebrating their success, and then that made them want to come to me and tell me about their success. And then I wasn't just getting success stories and case studies, I was actually learning from them because they were all innovating like crazy. And I think when I first came out with Product Launch Formula, I was 10 or 20 or 30% ahead of the market. But then when I started having hundreds of people per year come back to me and say, yeah, I did your thing. And I tried this thing. I was like, oh, well, that's something I never thought of. That's a really good idea. And so it became this success loop, which I actually started teaching. I call it the circle of awesome, where you create success for your clients. They come back and feedback that success. And that feeds into your product development, and that feeds into your marketing, which leads to more success and more success. We also call it launch stacking, where launches get bigger and bigger and bigger often. And it's easier to keep on growing your launches. In the earlier days, I've now got a very sizable company, and the changes are more incremental once you get to a certain point. But I think really it's been that I love to celebrate my client successes. And in doing so, it created this cycle of virtue where it helped me get better, it helped the product get better, it helped the formula get better, it helped my students get better results, but it also helped my marketing. And now it's like I've got these communities, I couldn't walk away from them if I wanted to. They've
almost become part of you. I mean, it is in your DNA. Let me ask you that. So often people talk about the success stories, like when they've launched a course, they talk about all the ways that it helps people. Is there also a benefit to say that, to show that, actually here is somewhere where it didn't work, or it needed an adaptation, or it didn't quite fit this demographic, or, do you understand what I'm saying? That is there some balance in that adds credibility?
I think so. I mean, you have to be careful. Well, first, there's in the teaching. I mean, like a core part of our teaching is like, okay, this is where you can screw this up, and this is how you can mitigate those risks, and this is how you can recover from those risks. Right. And this formula, this process, this approach is inherently one of the safer ones. I like to think if a Super Bowl ad to me is like one of the riskiest marketing propositions there is, because you're spending all this money on creative and you're spending all this money on ad time, and you got a one-shot deal, and who knows if it's going to work or not. Then what we do is a process. It's a sequence. It's a marketing sequence where you have many touch points, and if things aren't going the way you want, you can adjust. So I think it's inherently a very safe approach. I don't, it depends where in the cycle you are in terms of sharing the anti-success stories. That's not going to be like the thing I want to trumpet first and foremost.
No, not a chance.
As the first piece of marketing. Or it's the last
30% of the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it just might work if you flip the coin right. But and you probably, you don't want to put it leading right into the sale, but there's a place for, hey, let's get real. Let's get real. And this is what happens sometimes. And this is how you're covered. This is how our students have recovered. And let me tell you the story of someone who had a failed launch that turned it around. That's always going to be a great story to share.
That's actually kind of indicative of your feedback loop, that you see things that aren't working. You're actually building that into your teaching, that like the next time you go out and do that course or whatever, you're going to add that story in, or you're going to add that tweak, in to adjust to that. So I love the approach of being more proactive on the kind of in the process end than you are in the results, at the end. So what are some things that you've learned in this space, just in the marketing space alone, that can be consistent but yet adaptive to the ever-changing world or attention span, or whatever you want to call it, of the potential client?
Yeah, the thing that will never go out of fashion, in my opinion, is building an audience and building your relationship with them, building your connection with them, and then drilling deep into really getting to know them and know who they are and know what keeps them up at night. What are their hopes, their dreams, their fears, their frustrations? What are some of the dangers to whatever their aspirations are? How can you tell the story of their future success? So really leaning into who you're serving, and it never ends. I've been selling to this market, which is, if we just say this market, it's people that either have an online business and want to grow it, or they want to start an online business. So I've been selling into that market since 2005, nonstop. So what is it? 18 years, nonstop. And I just told you we're working on a new promotion for a new workshop that we're putting together. And I'm sitting there with my two strategic marketing folks on my team, the two marketing leaders on my team. And we're spending like an inordinate amount of time, what to an outsider might think is an inordinate amount of time, talking about who we're selling to. Like, who is it? Where are they at in their lives? On a macro sense, what's happening in the world that is impacting what they're thinking about? Yeah. This goes back to the famous quote about marketing, which is, you want to enter the conversation that's already happening in their mind. I always forget who that is. I think it was Caples that said that. But you want to enter the conversation that's already happening in their mind. What's already going on? What's their inner dialogue saying to them? And then how do you and your positioning and your marketing and your offer relate to that? So that'll be the first thing, is just the obsession over who you're serving. and what's going on in their head. And you know what? It's changed since 2005 to 2023. It's the same, have an online business they want to grow or want to start an online business, but where they are is wildly different now than it was in 05. And just wildly different.
Right.
So it's always obsessing about that. And I'm still obsessing about that. And so everyone, I think you need to obsess about that. You need to obsess about how to speak to them, about what other people are saying to them, about how you can sell against what other people are saying to them, how you can sell in conjunction with that. It's just all of that. And then if that's the first piece, the second piece is then obsess about your offers, about what it is you want to sell them, which is ultimately like, what is the transformation that you want to sell them? What is the transformation that they're looking for in their life? Do they want to lower their golf score? Do they want to lower their blood pressure? Do they want to learn a second language? Do they want to create a meditation practice? And then within each one of those, there's so much more drilling down to be done. So if it's obsess about who you're serving, obsess about how you're going to serve them, and then the marketing piece, the launch piece, the copy piece comes after those first two.
Yeah.
But it gets so much easier if you get the first two right. It's
Absolutely.
just so much easier.
Absolutely.
It goes back to that, that Gary Halbert, famous Gary Halbert quote or teaching, where he said, like, if you were to open up a hamburger restaurant, what's the absolute number one thing that you would want in your, what if you could just wave a magic wand, you wanted to sell a lot of hamburgers, what's the absolute number one thing you would want? And, was it a great location? Is it great reviews on Google? Is it an amazing recipe and incredible hamburgers? Well, what Gary said, no, none of those. What you want is a starving crowd. You have a starving crowd. None of the rest of the stuff.
Crowd.
And so if you think about those first two things I talked about, which, that offer, the who you're going to serve, pick your people. That's the phrase we're using right now in this new promotion, is pick your people. But we also like to talk about your avatar, your customer avatar, who's your ideal person. So if you have that perfect person, that is the perfect person that you can serve, and then you have the perfect offer, you've essentially created a starving crowd. And then everything else gets so much easier.
Is the process, or does it matter if you said, hey, I want to be in this space. Now I need to figure out within the space, within this, this vertical, that these are the people that are kind of the ideal clients, is what they're asking for? Or are you actually identifying the audience first and then letting the audience determine what the space is, or what the product or service is? Or does it matter?
Well, I would defer towards letting them decide, in any way you can. I'm a big fan of, if you're going into a vertical, the first thing I'm going to start doing is publishing. And I'm going to start publishing with the idea of gathering that audience, and then getting a conversation with them, having them give feedback to you, having them leave comments, and getting on the phone with them, getting on a Zoom with them, doing lives with them. And I like to say, like, you're rubbing elbows. You're rubbing elbows with the people in this market that you're starting to circle around, and like, this is interesting to me, interesting enough where I might be starting something. I'm going to start publishing, see if I can create some interaction, rub elbows, start to learn their language, even more so than you know it now. Start to learn what the hot buttons are, start to discover your voice that you're going to speak from and within this vertical. And that's all going to help you start to circle closer to your offer. And I mean, when I first came out with Product Launch Formula, launched the very first version in October 2005. And when I came out with it, I thought, and then I know this is telling a tale from the dark ages, but I came out with it, and it was actually on CDs and DVDs and books. That's what it looked like then. It's all online now.
Was it a brewing binder that you opened that had the slots for it?
It did. It had No, it didn't have binders. It had like the comb. It had 2 books that were like the comb bound, and I probably got one somewhere here. And then a whole box of CDs, a box of DVDs, and so and obviously when you do that, you have to get them printed, and there's lead time, and
Yep.
so then I'm starting my launch. I thought the product I was selling was going to appeal to people that already had a business, that already had an online business. I didn't think it was going to be for people that just wanted to start out. And as I got into the launch and I started getting all this feedback from the market, I was like, oh my gosh, 60% of these people are just starting out. And so right in the midst of the launch, I started to pivot my messaging to include those folks. But I also built in a whole bunch of bonuses. And the bonuses were all going to be delivered via, well, they were teleseminars back then. We didn't have webinars and we didn't have lives back then. But I added in a series of 6 calls that was all about, starting out and doing a launch when you're starting out. So that was an example where I thought I knew the market. But the market was slightly different. And so, that continues to this day. It's like every year I do a big master class for product launch formula. And every year we're tweaking the offer. We're changing the offer based on, wow, all of a sudden we've got a lot more artists that seem interested in this, or we've got a lot more people who are writing books that are interested in this. We better, change our messaging a little bit. Yep. And maybe add in a bonus here or there. And so it is a constant, I'll use the term again, I've used it earlier, circling, where you're circling around, you get closer and closer and closer, and you'll never be perfect. The market will shift, your people will shift, something will shift. So you're always going to be doing your best to get closer and closer, being able to really understand what people really want and articulate how you're going to serve that want.
It's interesting that I mean, is perfection the goal? Is that, I mean, does it then become the game? It's like the pursuit of perfection, or is, because at some level it's no longer the money. The money's not an issue, I mean, money, right. Brand authority, recognition, those, I mean, you've got all the plaques on the wall you need. So at some point in time, it something else has to be getting you out of bed in the morning, that's really good.
Yeah, Kevin, that's a big question. That is a super big question. So yeah, perfection isn't the goal. I think perfection, I don't have that big a perfection streak. I mean, I really obsess about when we bring something out, it's got to look pro, it's got to look good. But I do think I forget who it might have been Tony Robbins said this to me. He's like, perfection is like the lowest common, the lowest goal you could aim for, because you're never going to reach it. So by saying want to be perfect, it's like you're saying I'm
Michael Jordan.
Yeah, right. So you're never going to ship anything if you want to be perfect. The thing that gets me out of bed is first of all, the impact. I am driven by impact. I love getting those stories. I love hearing from people. I love hearing how I've changed their lives, and I love hearing how they are changing lives. I have a doctor who has like continuing education programs on reading echocardiograms. So I mean, there's like literally people that are doing this training and reading echocardiograms, in a better way because of product launch formula. It's like I had to go Google what an echocardiogram is. I know nothing about it, but the reality is there very well could be, probably even, are people in this world who didn't have heart attacks. And you could trace that back to Dr. Franz in Austria and trace that back to product launch formula and me. And that kind of like second and third order positive impacts in the world, that's super addicting to me. And I haven't gotten bored with that yet. That's super cool. That's one of the things that drives me. Another thing that drives me is my communities. We have this amazing community of PLF owners, product launch formula owners. We have this coaching program called Launch Club. We have this unbelievable community within Launch Club where they're just doing great things. They're supporting each other in such a big way. We've got a team of 10 coaches that supports them, 10 full-time coaches on my team that support them, plus concierges and all kinds of other admin folks that are supporting that whole program. And it's just such an amazing community. I love that. I love building communities. It's like literally, I think I'm better at building communities than I am at marketing. It's like my superpower. And then so certainly supporting my communities and just watching them thrive gets me out of bed. And then finally, my team. My team is we've now got nearly 40 people on the team. They love working for this team. We've got this incredible culture where we're all distributed. We're all over the states, all over the world, really.
Yep.
And it's such a tight-knit, warm team that just keeps on getting better and keeps on knocking down walls and doing cool things. So they inspire me. So my communities inspire me, and they get me out of bed, as does my team. So there's your big long story yeah. And frankly, the ultimate puzzle is, because I think this work is important, and because I think we're doing great work, and I think we're serving clients, and those clients are serving their clients.
Yeah.
I think the work's important, and I think I don't worry. I don't know how I feel about legacy and my legacy. I don't know how much I care about that. I still haven't figured that out, but I think that I'd like to see this work continue beyond me. I'm not as young as I used to be. So it's a bit of a puzzle figuring out, how do we take this and make this go beyond Jeff? And we've already, like I said, we've got this great team of 10 coaches that can coach as well as I can. We're starting to move in that direction, but there's a lot of work to be done there. And that's quite a puzzle. And I guess if you like figuring out puzzles, that's another thing getting me out of bed.
I mean, that's a problem that I think a lot of like name-based brands have,
Yep.
that you're, as far as that, what is that transition, after the fact. But I want to, before we transition to kind of our rapid fire as we're wrapping up today, I want one other question that is kind of interesting to me, because you talked about, kind of second and third, impact, and what would you say would be what's the integration or the intersection of someone that is serving this community already, that's serving this online business community, that these small business owners, how could they utilize your services? How could they work with you to support their own clientele? Kind of almost indirectly, I guess, is a maybe a word I'm looking for. Do you kind of understand the
So like someone that's more like a service-based, and they're serving like this online business world?
They've got their own client portfolios, or client portfolio that they're trying to serve, but they're seeing, hey, they could really benefit from this. And it's easy just to say, hey, go look at this website. But I mean, how can they take some of these principles too and apply them, directly?
Yeah, I mean, so the formula works. It's been proven over and over, and I think the formula comes down to, in my mind, the three biggest factors are sequences, and we have this pre-launch sequence, the open cart sequence. There's also a pre and a post-launch, but the two big heavy lifters is pre-launch and open cart. So just think in terms of campaign instead of one piece of creative.
Yeah,
and there's ways to within that sequence, there is a process to how to do it that's been proven over the years. And you can get the book on the Kindle for like $11 or something like that. Or if you go to productlaunchformula.com, we've always got some free training there. So sequences, stories, and stories are so critically important. I mean, how many stories, mini stories have I fit in here in this short amount of time we've had? Stories are super compelling. I think the world's really waking up to this, but there's, I think the more you can help your clients tell their brand story, but also the story of the way I think about it is, my job is to tell the story of my future clients' success. So I've got someone that just came into my world. I want to tell the story of their future success, of what's going to happen in their life once they get their marketing figured out, how they're going to be able to create the income, the lifestyle, the freedom, how they're going to be able to create that positive impact. And so that's what I mean, in the stories, like, I don't want, when I'm telling stories, I don't want to be the hero of the story. I want my listener to be the hero of the story. I want to just be the guide. I want to be the Gandalf or the Obi-Wan Kenobi. I want to be the guide. I don't want to be the Luke Skywalker. I'm not the hero. And sometimes a lot of stories I will tell might be about me, and they might be about me out mountain biking or out skiing or out being on a wild river. But somehow I seem to this ability to still make the story about the listener. And so I go to stories. And then the third one is the mental triggers. And the mental triggers like scarcity, like social proof, like likability, like scarcity, authority is a huge one. And there's a sequence in how you want to roll those out and where you want to put them in your marketing. So those three things, if you can just bring those to your clients, I think you'll be able to accelerate the results in a big way.
I mean, this could go on forever. I could continue to ask questions. You say things that trigger so many follow-up, thoughts and questions, but I do want to honor your time today, and I love the series of questions that they seem very random, but there's kind of a method to the madness in asking these questions.
Okay.
If you can just rapid fire question, just first thing that comes to mind, very short answers.
Should I be worried? Should I be worried?
No.
I don't know these questions.
Yeah, nothing embarrassing. So yeah. Did you get along with your parents growing up?
I did. There was a period where my dad and I were butting heads from probably like 16 until I went to college. But otherwise, yes.
Brother, that's a mirror of my life. That's right. Do you have siblings?
I have 3 siblings. I have 2 brothers and a sister.
And a pet or pets?
Currently, no. We had a dog that passed away a few years ago. My 2 kids, my 2 adult children, both recently got rescue kittens. So I've got 2 grandkids.
Got 2 grandkids. Well, you answered my next question. I was going to ask you about kids. So you have 2 adult children?
Yeah, son and a daughter, and they both were blessed that they live very close by. My daughter's 5 minutes away. My son's 30 minutes away. We live out in the mountains in Colorado. And one of my plans on moving, once we got successful with the business, I wanted to be out in the mountains, and I wanted to be someplace my kids wouldn't want to leave. And we succeeded. They're not going anywhere. So we're very close. We spend a lot of time together.
That's a cool place out there in the Western Colorado for sure. What time do you wake up?
I wake up when I wake up.
When you wake up, no alarm needed. What time?
No, the only time I set an alarm is for ski days. When I want that, and for flights. If I got a flight to catch, I'll set an alarm. Otherwise, for ski days, I've got my alarm set for about 6 a.m. to get me there for first chair.
There you go. So, and you go to bed at what time?
Usually 9:30 to 10 o'clock. So usually when I wake up is 6 o'clock or something.
Yeah, good night's rest.
Yeah.
Ideal vacation spot in the world.
There'll be a beach involved. And so
you see the mountains every day.
Well, I mean, I love the mountains. I love playing in the mountains. I love wilderness. River trips would probably be my absolute ideal. I've been down all the major rivers in the Western US. I've been through the Grand Canyon River.
Yeah.
Doing like a 3-week trip through Grand Canyon on the Colorado River is the trip of a lifetime. And I've done it 10 times.
Wow. That's like walking the Appalachian Trail, I think. So how does faith affect how you live?
I think I have a huge amount of faith, not in a traditional faith community, but I have a lot of faith in humanity and the forward progress of humanity, and that there is something bigger than what we're all doing, and there's stuff that we don't know, and we're going to figure it out.
Or someday we'll all know. That's right. What is this? I want to close with this. What's one thing that if you had the power to do one, just kind of short line, what would you change about the current marketing climate?
The one thing to change about the current marketing environment. Boy, that's a good one. I don't know. 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 I don't know what would it be?
My goal was to stump you at least one time in this interview.
Yeah, you stopped me cold. I got, my concerns are not even so much about the current marketing environment, but my concerns are about what the current online environment is doing to humanity. And I think social's got a lot to do with it. And I think the way things are currently set up on social is creating a very divided, divisive world where people are having a hard time having conversations. And that saddens me and worries me. And hopefully, like I said, I have that faith in an overall upward path for humanity. But this, I think, is a bit of a blip. And it is concerning. I don't know what the broad brush answer is, but if when people, direct marketing, I'm a huge fan of. I mean, that's what I do. That's what I learned. That's been responsible for all my success and all the impact I've made. And direct marketing is also, that's what's driving the algorithms. It's the same core thing is measure and response. And so the big online media companies, the social media companies, are all driven to keep people on their platforms. And they're doing that by rewarding eyeballs to stuff that is sticky and interesting and gets people all juiced and gets them all fired up. And so they're rewarding a certain type of content, and that content tends to be very divisive. And so I don't know if it's the marketing environment, but the online environment, which has been very, very good to me, and I love so much about it, but it's also it's troubling right now.
Yeah, and people need to say, hey, the emperor has no clothes at some point in time, and just say, hey, how do we kind of clean it? Want to clean the oceans? How do we clean the online stream that we're all walking in for sure, and our children and children's children will walk in. So
100%. Yeah.
And Jeff, thank you for just coming on the show, just taking time today, and it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time and just the way that you tend to serve people online. I mean, guys, I want to encourage you to go watch some of these videos that Jeff has on his YouTube channel, and just how, he's always the same. He's very consistently, the guy's happy all the time. I mean, which is one amazing thing, but just go watch his videos, and we'll make sure to have other contact information in the show notes. But Jeff, thank you again for just sharing your insights and just helping marketing agencies build and grow their marketing agency. Appreciate your time. Have a great week.
Thank you, Kevin. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.